Welcome to the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast, highlighting the unsung heroes of the restoration industry. Tune in today for success stories and insider tips. Now, here's your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast, and I'm so glad to be here. My promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine. It's going to energize your business and help you stay social. Because after all, don't you want to be the business that everyone's talking about? I know I do. And I'm so stoked today to have Mark Young with me. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Lorraine. I appreciate the invite. I've got my own caffeine. I know it's not healthy, but I'm gonna take some sips while we're chatting.
Absolutely. You always need a little jolt in the beginning of the day. So tell me a little bit about your business and what you do and who you serve.
Yeah, so I'm actually the founder and CEO at Rise Agency. We're actually a marketing agency. We really specialize in health and wellness and beauty, but we actually do reach into a lot of categories there. But I know we connected because you had gotten in contact with me through my book called Date Your Clients. And what's funny is that entire book took place and is filled with anecdotes about stories that I have experienced with clients along the way. So it's this whole juxtaposition between how the relationships that we form, romantic relationships specifically, are so similar to our business relationships, and yet adding a little bit of irony to that juxtaposition and saying that people think that they need to learn all of these strategies about business when in fact they already have these skills because you use them in your personal life all the time. And yet some people don't see the transferability of those skills, the relational skills that take place. So it all started with a client.
Right. So what made you think of the title, though, the topic? I mean, the title in itself.
I just like provocative titles. I mean, you hear somebody say date your clients and people typically wince, and I like that.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting. You have I guess there's a chapter in the book called The Walk of Shame. Where did that chapter come from?
Well, so the story, I'll kind of walk you a little bit through a timeline and tell you that the story actually began as a conversation with a client. And in trying to explain to the client, she was frustrated because she was convinced that some of her advertising wasn't working. And I was trying to explain to her that we were driving the traffic, but her website was so bad. And she keeps, and she's like, no. And I said, no, everybody goes to your website and your homepage literally tells people everything they possibly need to know about you. So yeah, you've got a very high bounce rate on your website because there's no reason to click anything. Like I go to your homepage, you're just vomiting all over me about everything I could possibly want to know about you. And then I'm just leaving. Like if I'm interested, I engage. If I'm not, I go away. And I said, and she wasn't grasping this. And I laughed and I'm like, listen to me. It's kind of like a dating profile, right? Like your homepage is like your profile picture on Tinder. You're either going to swipe left or swipe right. And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make them swipe right. And she was frustrated and whatever. I said, look, let me do this. I'm going to put this in an email to you. And then I'm going to send you an email that kind of breaks down what this looks like. And I said, because your website is kind of like going on a first date. Like your digital ad is getting them to swipe right. And then your website's a first date. But the goal of the first date isn't marriage. The goal of the first date is just to get a second date. Like we need to break this down. And I don't tell you everything there is to know about me on a first date. I tell you the interesting things. I tell you the things that make you want to ask questions and get to know me better next time. And so we started having this conversation and I literally broke down an entire relationship, like a dating relationship, and turned it into a lead funnel. And I'm like, really, dating is a lead funnel, right? Like I find as many available options as there are, and then I start filtering them all down until I find the one person I want to make a transaction with. Like this dating is a lead funnel. Like if you've got no prospects, what do? You throw the net in the water and you try to find out everything that there is to know about everybody available. And then you start making your choices from there. So what started as an email then turned into one of my leaders at the agency saying, boss, like this is like a white paper. Like we need to use this for lead generation. And so I started writing a white paper, which turned into a book. So your original question, though, was the walk of shame. How did that end up as a chapter? And what ended up happening was we got a few members of our team together in the conference room, and I'm like, look, this is what I'm doing. What do you think? And he's, and we literally sat there and we're like, what are all the different phases of a relationship? Like, what are all the relationship buzzwords and phrases and stuff like that people relate to? So like, make them swipe right. Anybody who has any even cursory understanding of online dating knows what that means. But we walked through the first date. We walked through the second date. We walked through the courtship. And the walk of shame, which is kind of a funny title, but the walk of shame is actually all about, from a personal standpoint, we talk about it being the relationship that you got into that was short-lived, and then you were embarrassed about it after it happened. Often we get the visual of the girl leaving the guy's dorm room after a drunken one-night stand carrying her high heel shoes, right? Like, ha, ha, ha. And it's this, but now I have to walk past everyone else on campus and everyone knows what happened. Same thing happens in sales. Same things happen in business, right? Like, how many times have you or I or anybody else like really doubled down and exhausted our energy and perhaps resources on a client that we were convinced was going to sign? And I mean, we practically stopped working on all of our other client leads because we were so sure that this one was going to be the big fish, only to have the client ghost you, right? Like you did everything that you were doing. You sold out. You practically put a down payment on the vacation house, and then the client bails on you. And now you got to show up at the office the next day with everybody asking what happened. Because it must have been you. You must have done something wrong because you've talked up this relationship so much. And now you're in a position where you're having to eat crow, so to say. So we actually walk through how to recover from that. Like, in a relationship, yeah, you know what? Own it and get on. Try again tomorrow. Find another option tomorrow, but don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, it's interesting, this whole concept of dating. I don't know who I was involved in this program out of Texas. I think it was with Ryan Dice and digital marketers. And he talks about that. There's a book on relationships, and it talks about the dating relationship. You don't expect a client, as soon as a potential client, right? First, they're going to meet you, right? And then there's the courtship. What a lot of business owners try to do is they try to go from the courtship to the first kiss to marriage. Exactly. And actually there's a book on this, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but I always
date your clients.
Yeah. Date your clients. Get it. Yeah. No, but it's true. It's a different angle. It was like 10 things or whatever. And 10, I don't know, 10 steps to a dating relationship, but it was kind of clever. It was cool. It's the first time I really thought about that. And then I looked at, when now I see other people's marketing, I actually view it in that way. You're so right. It's just like, it's like if you're on LinkedIn a lot like I am, I will connect with somebody and right away they'll send me 3 paragraphs of crap. And literally I don't honestly want to read it because it's spam. You're spamming me. I don't even know you yet. Why do you think I want to write 3? Why do you think I would want to read 3 paragraphs? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I tell people, like, and I laughingly say, like, you've seen the movie Hitch, right? With who is that? Will Smith and Kevin James.
Yeah.
And he's trying to turn Kevin James into this guy. And he's like, look, I can get you the date, and this is something that I have those same words going on with my clients all the time. And it's like, the value in client relationships in today's economy is not in transactions, it's in relationships. And the entire summary of Date Your Clients is literally value the relational over the transaction. That is the phrase that literally in the conclusion of the book, I say, like, if you took anything away from this entire thing, value the relational over the transaction. Value the people more than the transaction. And 2 reasons I say that is, the first thing is transactions end. Relationships don't have to. And the second thing is I really do believe that there's a certain karmic message that we all need to be paying attention to. That is, when you're a person who is a giver and continues to feed into others, even if they're not giving back to you, it changes you. Like, it makes you a person who is just genuinely that. And it's not about getting, because people sniff insincerity so fast. I mean, we've all gone on first dates and we were like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work. Like, from the minute it goes, you're like, yep, no. You know, whether it's the person who's trying too hard, whether it's the person who's name dropping everything, whether it's the person who is just trying to be more impressive than they really are. The reality is we all have sniff tests, and we know what doesn't stink when we get on a first date. And the same thing goes for clients. And that's why my best clients, the people who I've worked with longest and have the most success with, are not people that I tried to close. They're people I just got to know. And, you know, you get to know them through whatever, you know, you build a relationship with them. You know, if they're not ready to make a transaction, cool, let's go. I'll buy you drinks, whatever. Let's go do something. But it's people that you genuinely become friendly with and add value to their lives. And to the extent that you are adding value to them, they're willing to add value back to you. And it happens organically. And nobody wants a forced relationship. And I don't want to force. Some of my best clients are people I met years before they ever became clients. And if I walked into them and bumped into them in the mall, I would never turn them into clients. And I'll tell you what, I've had people I've known for a long time that I'm glad I got to know them before they turned into clients, because it let me believe that I didn't want them as clients, because I watched how they treated other people over the time that I got to know them. But the value in today's economy for any business, to your audience who's listening, and I will tell you, like, selling more cars is great, but selling to the same person every couple of years because they value your relationship as a dealer and refer all of their friends and family because of what great service and treatment you gave them because you genuinely cared, is much more valuable than trying to hustle new leads. Because new leads are expensive. Old relationships pay in dividends. I don't have an acquisition cost on an existing relationship.
Yeah. And, you know, I love that. I mean, I always say a lot of times, especially if I'm speaking, that relationships matter. And I'm really proud to say that there are several of my clients that I have a very close relationship with.
Yeah.
I consider them, I call them my, clients, but I actually consider them my friends. And if I need help, I could actually turn to them, which is, it's like, and then there's other clients, the ones that were transactional, that, it's like one time I was trying to make quota, and I had a goal that I wanted to set. They're not the same, but over the years I worked with them and got to know them better. And yeah. I feel like if you know them, like one of the things that I have to do, especially when I'm writing like content for people, I have to capture their voice. Well, if I don't know them, how am I going to capture their voice? Like, it's like I have a friend that whenever she gets on, a video, she'll like go, "Hello, buttercups or sunshine." Well, like if I said, "Hello, cups or sunshine," people would think I was nuts, Right. And it's the same thing. So like, I can't use her voice on everybody. I have to use her voice on her voice. And it's so important. I love your concept. I love the book. I'm definitely going to get it. And also, if you were going to write, like I remember when I wrote my first book, right? There was always that chapter that you should have put in. If there was one chapter that you would have put in or need to put in now that you've, really seen the concept and see how far it's gone and maybe questions people asked you, what chapter would that be? What would the title be?
Well, I'm going to tell you that probably the chapter that didn't make it in, but didn't for a reason. And then because of the editing process for anybody who's written a book, as you understand, like a lot of stuff gets left on the floor. Things get cut and chapters get cut. And there were quite a few of them that didn't make the cut because I was able to combine content into a different area and so on. But the one that didn't make it in was called Buying the Ring. And the entire buying the ring conversation was from a personal standpoint, marriage is permanent. And from a client standpoint, there is no such thing as a permanent client. That's called a partnership. So there was an entire chapter that I was going to talk about in mergers and acquisitions. That is when you've gotten so close to a client that you've actually decided that you guys are better together. And I've had relationships with clients who they were a client and we decided to start a business together. And I'll tell you what, getting out of a business with somebody is actually harder than getting divorced. So the idea that you actually get into a partnership business with somebody who was a client is like a marriage. I mean, this is a person who you are assigning 50% of your assets over to in the business. If one of you works harder than the other one, you both reap the same reward. It is very much like a marriage relationship. And we actually decided to leave that out. And it was kind of left out at the last minute with the idea that we could always create the next book called Marry Your Clients, and make the entire thing about managing through partnerships and how partnerships need to ebb and flow and dealing with all of these specific things that happen in partnerships. And I've had those go well. I've had those go terribly, a mess. I've been in partnerships where one of the partners was stealing from the business. And, but I look at that, like, what if you had a partner who had a gambling addiction and was, or a husband or wife? Like, if I had a wife that was spending all of our money on a gambling, addiction or some other kind of addiction or whatever, but we're just spending it on purses and shoes. I don't know. But if all the money in our checking account's going missing at the end of the month, how do you deal with that? And it's very similar to if you had a partner who was taking money out of the business and it was causing operations to fail. And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with decision-making in a 50-50 partnership? Because someone has to hold the title president. But how do you keep everybody engaged, and who shares responsibilities? And in most business partnerships, one person is responsible for revenue and the other person is responsible for operations. And it's kind of like one spouse may be the bigger breadwinner while the other spouse may take care of the house more. Very similar allegories. So we did leave that chapter out with the idea that Marry Your Clients could actually be a second book on that entire topic.
Yeah, and that would definitely be a great sequel. So make sure you get that name all.
I'll go button that one up now, right?
But this is the part of the show where I like to get real. What would you say? We're business owners, okay? We own our own businesses. We're, some people will call us entrepreneurs. Some people, who knows what they'll call us, but
crazy.
Yeah,
that's what they call us. We're crazy.
Or that's nice. That's nice for you, they'll say. That's good for you. But I mean, we both know that there's struggles. And I like to help people out there. I work with a lot of home service businesses and restoration companies, and I know it's a struggle. So what is maybe one struggle that you have gone through, and how did you correct it? Because we all need to know how to correct things.
I will tell you, our biggest struggle as a business is staffing. Being very honest, and I believe that in our industry, which is marketing and advertising, there's a very low cost of entry for anybody and their brother to just go open their own agency, right? So everybody who has a computer can be a digital ad expert. And the problem is speaking to your clients specifically, if they're in restoration businesses and stuff like that, the same problem exists for many of them. Like anybody with a van and a ladder, is a roofer. And how do you set yourself apart from them? Because your own staff can turn into your competition, or and it's my stepmother always used to use the phrase that it's hard to hire good people because good people just start their own businesses. And I'm like, I don't know that that's true. Like I never believed that. Because I believe while it is true, there is also the opportunity to make strategic partnerships with other people. There's the opportunity to treat your people so well that it's not enticing for them to go out and start their own businesses. But that is always an issue for us, is finding people who deliver on the relational quality that I insist on, while also delivering on the outcomes that I insist on as well. Like I've got very high standards for the way my clients get treated, and making sure that we've got the staff that's like-minded in that respect, and being able to hire them. And right now I literally just got off a telephone call with my digital director, talking about an influx of clientele that we have coming in. Like, I need to make sure that we are staffed accordingly. And I don't want to wait until we need them. Like, we need to be out solving this problem now. So that when we do get these clients in, they don't want us to wait until we can staff appropriately. They want to know that we can handle it. I said, and I don't want to tap the team so badly that they're crushed.
Yeah. That's so that point.
Yeah. So, and staffing is always the issue. And like I said, if you're working in the restoration business, I grew up in a family that owned a home remodeling company. So I laugh and say in college, I sold windows and sold roofing and sold siding and, all this kind of stuff. So like I did the in-home visits, and that's probably my first dip into understanding, the importance of speed to lead kind of sales. And, and I use those same conversations today, right? Like it's truthfully, it's like, if I'm the guy who shows up at your house and gives you a quote on your roof, I get to set the bar for what everyone else who comes in after me is expected to live up to. And if I reschedule the appointment because I'm busy, I probably lost the sale. Like, don't even reschedule at that point. Just cancel, right? Because someone else is going to come in and close. And I think that's for people who are in the service industry. Staffing is always the problem. As an entrepreneur, like, how do you get people who I use the phrase that I'm obsessed with my client's success, and how do you find people who are that obsessed? And if you're in the restoration business or the home remodeling business or whatever, like, how do you find people who love their craft as much as you do? And the reality is, I think there are people like that out there. We need to find them, all of us. We need to go find them. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of artists out there in restoration and advertising, everything. There are people out there who love their craft so much, and they don't want to worry about money. They don't want to worry about the business side of entrepreneurship. They just want to love their craft. And if you can find people who love their craft so much and don't want to be bothered with the business side of things, they're the people you want to hire. We then just need to pay them so they're not worried about money.
Yeah. You hit a couple. I mean, we could talk for hours on this, and we don't have hours, but my husband's a plumbing contractor and now he teaches, but our business is still running and we have somebody running it. And that's the person, that was the unicorn that we had hired. And he's been in business for over 40 years. And we had one unicorn that stayed with us, and he's just an Energizer bunny. He loves doing what he's doing, and he's respectful. And you could also tell by the reviews he gets, because now my husband's not doing the tools anymore. It's just amazing what a difference. And I notice that it's kind of a double-edged sword with the hiring staff and stuff, because like if you are, for instance, a restoration company or a roofing company or a landscaping company, the more trucks you have on the road, right? The more trucks, the more money you make. However, you have to staff all those, right? But also, here's the other part of it. You also have to keep them busy. So, you as well as I know that we, as marketers, we have to keep that phone ringing. And then there's a whole other, I could literally, I've thought about this over and over again, and then it's who's answering the phone. You can lose in the service business if somebody answers the phone like, Duncan's Plumbing and Heating, or, the plumbing artisans, and then, is not even interested. And I'm sorry, we can't get anybody out there until 5 years from now? I mean, those are the things that lose.
Absolutely. It's my pet peeve at restaurants. It's an entire service-based industry. So we take the lowest paid, lowest trained person and put her at the front door.
Yeah. And, that's a scary thing in itself.
Absolutely. You go to any restaurant and you've got a terrified 16-year-old girl standing at the front desk and, who tells you, I'm sorry, there's a 15-minute wait. And you look around the restaurant and there's 17 empty tables.
Yeah.
And she's not equipped to answer the question. She doesn't understand efficiency. She doesn't understand the kitchen's backlog. She doesn't understand the fact that, that you can put people at a table and go give them a beverage and they'll gladly wait for a server. But she doesn't understand any of that. And it's like so my background is actually, prior to doing what I do now, I actually worked at universities, colleges and universities. And I was a professor as well as an administrator at schools. And couple of things that I would say there is that we always called the receptionist the director of first impressions, because it didn't matter who the person was that walked through the door, whether it was a prospect, whether or not it was an applicant or whatever. Person sitting at the front desk immediately sets the tone for your entire visit to our campus.
Yeah.
And when you walk in the door, that first smile, that first voice on the telephone, that everything immediately makes an impression. And one of the things a mentor of mine in that industry had made a comment years and years ago that always stuck with me. And that is, he used to make the comment that there was nothing that kept him awake at night being in the education business and running schools and knowing that he'd never know what teachers were actually saying in the classrooms. He's like, because the university will make or break on what a teacher is saying. And one rogue teacher giving bad education will ruin the entire school. I mean, a few snarky comments and you end up in the news. And he's like, but worse yet, what if you have a teacher if a person takes a class and it's like you're running a nursing school and you get a teacher who just doesn't know how to teach an anatomy course, you've set a student up for failure for the rest of their nursing career. He's like, that keeps me awake at night. And I think of that all the time, even in my business. Like when I'm not dealing with a client or I'm not involved in a project, is that project getting the type of attention that I would give it? Is it getting, and we literally were just talking, like I said, I just got off the phone with my digital director a moment ago, and we were talking about staffing levels and whatnot. And she was talking about how she personally wants to make sure that she's attached and never leaves the side of high value clients. And I'm like, I agree with you because you're the person who I want working on those high value clients. My problem is I have a problem calling anybody not a high value client. And I know what she means.
Right. No.
I know what she means. What she means is the clients with the biggest budgets and the clients with the most technical concerns and all this other kind of, and I, from a revenue standpoint, I completely understand what she means. For me, I'm like, I don't care if you're getting bottle service or if you just ordered bread and water, you should still have a great experience at the restaurant.
Right. It's everybody gets VIP treatment.
Yep.
That's
as it should be.
I love it. One piece of advice, universal to someone who's either starting up a business, is in a business, and or somebody who's thinking of leaving corporate world and starting their own business. What would you say to them? One piece of advice.
So I will give the advice: trust your gut. And if you've ever, after you finish reading Date Your Clients, I would tell entrepreneurs to go pick up a book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And an incredible book, but Gladwell actually dissects physiologically how what we call trusting your gut is actually a phenomenon that he refers to as thin slicing. And in that concept of thin slicing, what he actually explains is that we react to the majority of the world and we don't act on much. And that is, when you feel something intuitively, it's because at a subconscious level, your body is triggered in a memory center in the brain. and you're physiologically reacting to a subconscious stimulus. And when an entrepreneur gets into their business, they tend to overanalyze everything, because if you don't overanalyze, there's almost the stigma that you're a bad business person. That, if you didn't think through every possible option, if you didn't measure every possible thing, then you're just not a good business person. And I call bullshit on that. And I will tell you that most entrepreneurs do what they do because they feel their way through the interactions. And I don't believe that there's enough credit given to entrepreneurs being able to sense what's wrong and at a subconscious level just know what's right for their business. Kind of like a mother who just knows that something's wrong with their child and the doctor says everything's fine. I function that same way with my business. I tell my team, like, often I can come to you and say there's something wrong, and my team will say nothing's wrong. I'm like, I'm telling you something is wrong on this account. And they will say, no, I've went through it 16 times. I've looked at it. Everything's fine. And then my team knows now, I may not know what's wrong, but if I tell you something is wrong, just trust my gut, because you will find something is wrong because I can feel it. And it's beyond conscious that I understand it, but something in the numbers is weird. Something in that call didn't vibrate, and even if the data looks contrary to what I'm saying, usually I'm spot on. And I may not put my finger on it at this minute. And I think many entrepreneurs paralyzed by analysis, and because they want to be perceived as good business people, they figure that this is new territory for them, so they have to follow the map. And if the map's about to lead off a cliff, like, you may want to use your eyes once in a while and realize that that's not a good direction. So yeah, that would be my advice to someone who's feeling their way into business, is learn to trust your instrument.
Yeah, and really trust it, because I know for many years I struggled with this, is that I'd have a gut feeling about something and I would be right. And it put me in some awkward situations and everything. So, with clients and even with people. So you got to trust like my husband he's impeccable with his gut. Like if he says, there's something wrong with that, he's usually right. And I've learned more just if my gut, and you're right, there is a physical symptom. Sometimes it's a stomach ache. Sometimes I'll get like a little like goosebump, like in the back of my neck. And I'll know right away, like sometimes somebody doesn't just feel right, that it may not be, think about it. If you were getting married to this person and you got that funny feeling, you probably wouldn't want to be married to them for 10, 20 years. So, yep.
Yeah, and it's
great advice. Great advice. Well, I want to just thank you so much for being on my show. And if somebody resonated with you today, definitely buy his book. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah, go on Amazon. It's right there.
Yeah. But I mean, if they needed to get in touch with you, needed, some help in their business, how would they get in touch with you?
I would tell them go to mark@dateyourclients.com and just email me directly. I check my own inbox, so they're more than welcome to reach out to me. I love conversations and meeting new people.
Awesome. Well, I thank you again, and until next week, everyone, I'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us today on the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast. Armed with today's insights, you're set to elevate your restoration company. Be sure to subscribe to stay ahead, and don't forget to rate and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. We'll catch you again in the next episode of the Restoration Ninja Profits Podcast.